welcome back to the Detours in Music podcast. My name is Laura Rupel, and I cannot wait for you to hear today's interview with Awadagin Pratt. This is Season 3, Episode 8. For this interview, we were in a kind of hustle and bustle space, so there are some moments when you might hear some background noise, and I do apologize, but the content of the interview is what's most important. I hope you enjoy.
My name is Awadagin Pratt. I am professor of piano and artist in residence at CCM in Cincinnati. I also run the Art of the Piano Foundation and Festival.
And in your summers, you're also.
And so in the summers, I'm on the faculty of the Eastern Music Festival.
And that is where we are recording
We're
today.
now right here in Greensboro right at the moment, yeah.
Can you talk about your start in music?
My start in music?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I started piano when I was 6. I was living in Illinois, and my father, my parents listened to classical music. My dad had played the organ when he was a kid, when he was younger, and so yeah, I started with piano lessons at 6, and then got violin lessons when I was 9, and stayed, with both instruments until I was about 23, really. I got degrees in piano and violin for my undergraduate certificates at Peabody, and then got a diploma in conducting. And then around the time pretty shortly after I got that diploma in violin, I stopped kind of practicing regularly.
You kind of picked
yeah,
the team.
Yeah.
What was the moment where you realized that music is not only what you're good at, but what you wanted to do with your life?
Yeah, I don't know that at the time that I made the decision that I was sure that I was good at it, but I was 15 and I was entering college when I was 16, and I needed to figure out what my major was. I was interested in a lot of things academically, and I was interested in the language arts. I had interests in science as well. And I also grew up playing a lot of tennis, but I realized that sort of the calculus was that if there was whatever was a thing that I felt like I needed to do every day. So if I didn't, hit a tennis ball, or if I didn't write something, I would be fine. But if I didn't have an engagement with music, that would not be a good day. And so that was sort of the basis of deciding that I wanted to pursue a career as a musician. I
personally used to play a couple of different instruments, and there comes a time when you kind of have to pick, like we were saying, and for me, I picked oboe because I felt like I had to keep
that had
it
to
up.
be the one, yeah. You had to shave reeds.
Yes, it was not going to be there in 5 years if I put it down.
Right.
So, when you attended Peabody, what drew you there?
Well, that was interesting. So I had been at University of Illinois where I started. Okay. Then I transferred to Peabody, and I wanted to transfer to a conservatory. I wanted to be in a more concentrated musical environment. And so I applied at Cleveland Institute, and I was accepted as a pianist, not a violinist. I applied at New England. I was accepted as a violinist and not a pianist. And at Peabody, I was accepted at both. So I went to Peabody. Yeah. And it turned out that I had, my violin teacher knew the violin teacher at Peabody. My piano teacher at Illinois had been connected to somebody at Peabody as well. So there were some nice links across there.
And did you receive graduate degrees just in conducting, or?
Yeah, I was in the middle of my artist diploma in piano when I won Naumburg. And I had just finished my diploma in conducting that year. And I had really not, I had been in school for 10 years at that point. I was trying not to come back to finish the artist diploma, really. Yeah. And so I guess I decided to win the competition instead.
Yeah, I mean, that's a pretty good reason.
It was a good reason to not finish, yeah.
Do you get to do a lot of conducting now?
I don't, but it is a goal. It's a focus for the future. Actually, we're here in Greensboro. I'm conducting Porgy and Bess here in January with the Greensboro Opera. And then I am, what else am I doing? Pittsburgh Chamber Orchestra next year, also a program there, and it seems like another thing I might be doing.
You're kind of known as a jack of all trades. Is there something you struggled with in your undergraduate degree?
I did not like early music history. So that was a struggle. I didn't like 20th century music. So that was a struggle. It's interesting because I'm involved in, in commissioning new works now. It's a complete 180. But so those were things that I struggled with. I mean, you're learning as a student new techniques, new skills all of the time. I mean, I learned how to sight read well. I learned how to be a good collaborator and accompany well, and there are things like that but I mean, when you first start doing them, you're not good at them, but I wanted to be good at them, so I worked at it.
I think even saying early music and 20th century music makes sense because those are kind of on the outskirts of what we
the core
do
repertoire.
Most,
Right.
Do you have advice that you hear yourself saying to your students all the time? Like it's the thing you say over and over?
I think as a musician, the hardest thing to do is to listen to yourself in your practice, to really be
objective,
very focused. Well, to actually hear what you're doing, not what you think you're doing, not what you intend to do, but like what actually came out, and to be really refined. So I say that the only things that are difficult, a difficulty only exists between two notes. It's not a whole passage. So there might be a string of difficulties. It could be from these two notes to these two notes, these two notes to the third note to the fourth note, but there are a succession of difficulties that must be solved individually and then put together. And if you can't hear exactly where the problem is, then you can't fix the problem. And if you group too many things together when you're trying to fix the problem, you also don't fix the problem. And so having really critical hearing and listening to oneself is, it leads to better practice and also more efficient practice. You can practice less time, the more efficient that your practice is, because you're not mindlessly repeating the passages and things like that. So that's really important, and then to remain focused on. I was telling the kids yesterday that we're kind of in a service industry. That if I like music, it's not for me. I mean, sorry, if I like music, I can play it at home. I can just play it at home for me.
Yeah.
And that it's about sharing and for the betterment of others to perform it.
I was kind of listening in your lesson earlier, and I think your first point of like really hearing yourself, I was observing that where you asked the student, are you actually hearing it in your head? Do you know what you want to evoke? And then as soon as they thought about it, it was much better.
Right.
And so if we all were asking ourselves those questions in our practice, like things would get better.
Yeah.
Would you be doing if you were not a musician?
When I was younger, I thought I would definitely be involved in literary writing, speaking, things like that. Now I'm very involved in food, and I smoke a lot of meat. I cook a lot. I collect wine, and so I'd probably be in that kind of industry somewhere.
Okay. Maybe a food critic.
I think that I had a blog for a little while where I was doing that as I traveled around the country, and that was fine. But I think I would want to be on the production end. I'd want to, have a restaurant. I'd want to make food. Yeah.
I would love to eat at the restaurant. Has the focus of your career changed?
Yeah, I mean, the focus. I'm not somebody that ever set out and said I'm going to do this or that thing. Because, I mean, it's lucky to end up where I did, winning Naumburg, and to have a career performing. I think that I was intentional about teaching at some point. I'm intentional about conducting at some point. But I never was like, okay, I'm going to focus on this and then this, And I was also intentional about moving into the new music area with these commissions and things like that. And so that's exciting that is, coming to fruition. So, yeah, but things have changed, obviously, from the time I was 26.
Yeah. Do you plan to change directions?
Conducting is the primary goal, and seeing this commissioning project through and seeing if there are other collaborations that come about as a result of that. There are a couple conversations that I might be having with some other composers. And I think that's interesting. I think that I've been very good at the recreative process of dead composers, and it's nice to be involved in the not fully creative, but closer to creative inception, the very beginning of the process of bringing pieces of music to life. Yeah.
The podcast is called Detours in Music, and part of that kind of word is a path that maybe isn't what you initially thought, but it's not necessarily longer, it's not necessarily worse, it's just different. So can you think about detour moments in your life?
I mean, I think of the whole thing as a detour, it's just there is no prescribed path for anyone. I could say the biggest detour was winning Naumburg, right? Going from a student to, having 30 and then 50 and 60, whatever number of concerts a year, like that was a big shift, but it was still part of the path that I was on, So
it just maybe couldn't have been predicted.
Right,
it was
right. That's right. So what comes up in the future is a path that I'm on, but unless, I get, lose an arm or something, that would be a detour.
What brought you to your job at CCM?
That's kind of interesting. I had a student, I used to play chess in Albuquerque. One of the guys I played chess with was this Cuban immigrant. And he didn't know that I played the piano, but one of the other, and he was a great chess player, and one of the other top-level chess players there was a consumer of classical music, and I just played with the local orchestra in New Mexico Symphony, and so he saw me when I was playing. He's like, "Oh, great concert the other day." And the guy's like, "What are you talking about?" He's like, "Oh, my daughter plays the piano." So I sort of co-taught her, like, for her junior and senior years, and then she went to Indiana, then she eventually came to Cincinnati, and every time she came back to Albuquerque, she'd be like, "When are you going to be teaching somewhere?" So that, and I would always just sort of say, "Oh, by the time you're doing your DMA," I would just sort of,
That'll be the time.
Yeah, and then she came back one time and said, Cincinnati is hiring like 1 or 2 positions, and the chair at the time was a friend of my former teacher, and so I kind of got in touch with him about it. And my parents had been professors, so it had always been something that I thought that I was going to do. So it just kind of happened like that.
And what brought you to Eastern Music Festival?
I used to come here a couple times as a guest artist. Jerry Schwartz, I worked with probably in my first or second year of playing concerts out in Seattle. And then I worked with him a lot over the years at different other orchestras where he was conducting. To Japan together, and so he'd invited me as a guest to do like guest weeks here, and then he invited me to join the faculty. So
cool.
I thought it would be fun.
Do you have some goals for the field of music moving forward?
I am on a task force with the College Music Society.
Okay.
That I'm co-chairing it actually with somebody that teaches at Curtis. And there are deans of other schools of music, there are faculty from other schools of music, there are faculty from institutions like community colleges that don't award performance degrees, but we're examining the culture and curricula of what's offered with the lens of is what we're providing what students need. The musical world looks vastly different now from what it did when conservatories and schools of music were founded and these curricula were devised. And in what ways can we refine, broaden the offerings and experiences of students to better suit what they're interested in and what the world looks like. And so it will be interesting to see. I think the meetings have been good so far. We're planning to do a survey of the membership of the College Music Society to see because the task force will eventually try something. We're going to run a test at our respective institutions of some idea that we can then hopefully use as a template to tell other people, look, we tried this in this sort of circumstance and these were the results, it kind of worked this way, blah, 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 whatever it is. But to help actually move the needle, not in a, change in an institution takes forever.
Yeah.
Definitely. And we're
Definitely.
trying to find ways to help schools be able to make a quicker pivot to address some of these issues with maybe some techniques that we pick up from what we're doing.
Exactly.
So that's something, and obviously just in the field in general, having more diversity of musicians on stage and in audiences and behind the scenes, whether it's a stage crew and staff and behind the scenes further in boardrooms and things like that. So that's what, would be good to have happen in the future.
Yes, we definitely need to get better at letting people in and better at letting what we do out.
Right.
They both need to get better.
Right.
I'm very grateful to Professor Pratt for his time for that interview. Something I really took away is he said, if you can't hear exactly where the problem is, then you can't fix the problem. Now, we're all musicians here, so of course we're applying that advice to our practice, but if you think about it, you can apply that advice to every area of your life. They say ignorance is bliss, but improvement might be a little bit better. If you'd like to keep up with the podcast, there are multiple ways you can do so. First of all, you can go to our website, which is detoursandmusicpodcast.weebly.com. You could also subscribe to our YouTube channel, also called Detours and Music Podcast. We also have a Facebook page and Instagram account where you can like and follow us. The Detours and Music Podcast is available everywhere that you listen to podcasts, but on Apple Music podcast apps, you can subscribe and rate us. If you ever want to get in touch with me and give more direct feedback, you can email me at detoursandmusicpodcast@gmail.com. As always, thank you for listening, and I hope you catch the next one.